I gripped my tablet tighter as Devin leaned forward, cutting me off mid-sentence for the 17th time that afternoon. What Autumn is trying to say, he interjected with that practice confidence, is that our user acquisition costs need adjusting. But let's table the specifics for now. The room hummed with murmurs of agreement. Not one person acknowledged what had just happened. Again, I'd spent 3 weeks refining these projections. 3 weeks of late nights, skipped meals, and database deep dives to identify the exact financial strategy that could save this sinking company. Yet my findings remained unheard. Beneath my presentation notes, I added another tally mark: 17 interruptions in 90 minutes. My male colleagues? 0. When our CEO announced our 80 million investor would join next week's call, I made a decision. I reviewed state laws that night. Single-party consent, legal to record. The next morning, I arrived early, placed my phone on the table, started the recording app, and waited. What happened in that meeting changed everything. Not just for me, but for every woman who'd ever been talked over in a boardroom. Before I share the full story, I want you to know that what you're about to hear isn't just about revenge. It's about justice in a system designed to silence voices like mine. If you've ever been interrupted, overlooked, or had your ideas attributed to someone else, you'll understand why this matters. Stay until the end, because the way this unfolded shocked everyone involved, including me. My name is Autumn Kelly. I'm a financial strategist with a master's in economics and 10 years of experience turning struggling companies into profit machines. My previous venture netted investors triple their initial stake through my revenue diversification model. I don't just understand numbers, I see patterns others miss. 6 months before that fateful recorded meeting, I was recruited to join a promising tech startup called DataStream. They developed AI-powered analytics tools for mid-sized businesses. And while their product was exceptional, their financial strategy was a disaster, burning through seed money, missing revenue targets, and repeatedly pushing back their Series B funding round. Their CEO, Ellis Grant, convinced me to join with promises of autonomy and impact. "Your expertise is exactly what we need," he'd said during our interview. "We want you to completely revamp our approach to monetization." I believed him. I left a secure position to take this risk because I saw DataStream's potential. The first few weeks seemed promising. People listened during my onboarding period, took notes when I identified inefficiencies, nodded along to my initial observations. That changed the moment I moved from theoretical advice to implementation. The first time I presented a comprehensive strategy in the weekly leadership meeting, I noticed something odd. Every time I reached a crucial point, someone would interject. "Let's circle back to that. We should prioritize more immediate concerns. That's interesting, but perhaps too ambitious for our current phase." At first, I questioned myself. Was I being unclear? Not assertive enough? Presenting too much information at once? I adjusted my approach, simplified my presentations, practiced my delivery. Nothing changed. 3 months in, I started documenting every interruption in meetings. The pattern emerged with disturbing clarity. While my male colleagues averaged 0 to 2 interruptions per presentation, mine consistently hit double digits. The most frequent interrupters? Devin Marsh, marketing director, Wyatt Jennings, CTO, and occasionally Ellis himself. What made it more frustrating was watching them implement fragments of my strategies piecemeal, often after one of them repackaged my idea weeks later. The company was still struggling, using only portions of the comprehensive approach I'd designed. I tried addressing it directly. After one particularly frustrating meeting, I approached Devin. "I noticed you interrupted my presentation several times today," I said, keeping my tone professional. "I'd appreciate the chance to finish my points before opening for discussion." Devin's expression shifted to confusion, then dismissive amusement. "Did I? I don't think so. I was just trying to keep us on schedule. These meetings tend to run long." Yet 30 minutes earlier, he'd spent 15 uninterrupted minutes discussing marketing concepts that had little connection to our quarterly objectives. I tried different approaches, speaking louder, sending materials beforehand, asking Ellis for designated presentation time. Nothing worked. In fact, the interruptions increased. The breaking point came during my quarterly forecast presentation. After 17 interruptions, not one person in that room had heard my complete analysis. The projections I'd spent 3 weeks perfecting were dismissed without proper consideration. We were 3 weeks away from our final pitch to secure $80 million in funding, money the company desperately needed, and the leadership team was ignoring critical financial insights. That night, I couldn't sleep. DataStream had potential, but without proper financial strategy, it would collapse within months. This wasn't just about my frustration anymore. It was about the company's survival and the livelihoods of our 67 employees. I researched recording laws in our state, confirming single-party consent was legal. I didn't plan to share the recording publicly, I just needed evidence. Something concrete to demonstrate the pattern when I finally addressed the issue with Ellis or the board. The next morning, our conference room buzzed with nervous energy. The $80 million investment would either save us or, if lost, effectively end the company. Ellis straightened his tie repeatedly, while others rehearsed talking points. When our investor Preston Hall's face appeared on the video call, introductions began. Preston was known for his directness and impatience with inefficiency. His venture capital firm had backed some of the most successful tech companies in the past decade. At 62, he had silver hair and penetrating gray eyes that seemed to evaluate everything. "Let's get started," he said after brief pleasantries. "I've reviewed your previous materials, but I want to hear where things stand today." Ellis gave his standard company overview, followed by Wyatt's product development update. Both spoke uninterrupted. Then Ellis introduced me. "And now Autumn will give us a brief financial overview." I opened my presentation, conscious of the recording app running on my phone. "Thank you. I've prepared an analysis of our current financial position and projections based on the strategy implementation I've been developing." I made it through 3 slides when Devin leaned forward. "Sorry to cut in, but your projection seems optimistic considering last quarter's performance. We should probably focus on more conservative estimates." I nodded and continued. 2 minutes later, Wyatt interrupted. "I think we should address the technical infrastructure costs before discussing revenue streams. Those numbers won't make sense otherwise." Again, I acknowledged him and tried to continue. I was approaching the most crucial part of my presentation, the part that would make or break our funding case, when our product director Nolan attempted the third interruption. If I could just add something about our user growth that might impact these numbers. Then, something unexpected happened. Preston cleared his throat. "I notice a pattern developing here." The room went silent. "Your financial strategist has been interrupted 3 times in under 10 minutes. I've been counting." His gaze swept across everyone's faces on the video call. "Reminds me of our previous meetings. This is exactly why we're reconsidering our position with DataStream." No one breathed. Ellis paled visibly. When organizations silence their most valuable voices, they miss critical insights. Preston continued. "I specifically requested Ms. Kelly's involvement in these meetings after learning she was the architect behind TechVent's remarkable turnaround last year. That's why I was concerned when she barely spoke during our last 2 calls." My heart pounded as I realized what was happening. Preston continued. "I'd like to hear Ms. Kelly's complete financial strategy without interruption. And afterward, I'd like to understand why this pattern of silencing exists at DataStream." Ellis stammered. "Of course, absolutely. Please continue, Autumn." For the next 20 minutes, I presented my complete financial strategy for the first time. I outlined the inefficiencies in our current model, the targeted changes needed, and the projected outcomes. I explained how we could triple revenue within 18 months while cutting operational costs by 23%. When I finished, Preston nodded thoughtfully. That's precisely the kind of strategic thinking I expected. "Now, Ellis, would you care to explain why this is the first time I'm hearing this comprehensive approach? Miss Kelly has been with you for 6 months. Ellis struggled to form a response. "We've been implementing elements of Autumn's strategy progressively. There are many voices to consider. And some voices apparently matter more than others." Preston interrupted. "Here's my position. DataStream has excellent technology but deeply flawed leadership dynamics. I'm prepared to offer the full $80 million investment with conditions." The tension in the room was palpable as everyone waited. First, Ms. Kelly becomes Chief Strategy Officer with direct reporting to me, not filtered through your current structure. Second, your leadership team undergoes communication and inclusion training with quarterly assessments. Third, you implement her full strategy as presented today, not piecemeal. Ellis nodded rapidly, relief washing over his face at the prospect of securing the funding. We can absolutely accommodate those conditions. I'm not finished, Preston said. I'm also appointing Miss Kelly to our advisory board. We've needed her perspective across our portfolio. This position comes with its own compensation package, separate from her role at DataStream. I sat stunned. This was beyond anything I could have imagined. Not only validation, but a promotion, direct access to the investor, and an independent role that gave me security regardless of what happened at DataStream. Does that arrangement work for you, Miss Kelly? Preston asked. Finding my voice, I replied, yes, I believe in DataStream's potential, and I'm committed to seeing my strategy successfully implemented. Excellent. My team will draw up the paperwork. I expect it signed by end of day tomorrow. Preston's tone left no room for negotiation. After the call ended, the conference room remained silent. Ellis finally spoke, his voice strained. Autumn, congratulations on your promotion. We'll need to discuss the transition of your responsibilities. Devin and Wyatt couldn't meet my eyes. The recording device on my phone was still running, capturing every awkward second of the aftermath. I gathered my materials while avoiding eye contact with everyone. The atmosphere was thick with tension and unspoken accusations. As I walked out, I could hear urgent whispers behind me. Back in my office, I closed the door and took my first full breath in what felt like hours. My phone buzzed with an email from Preston's assistant, requesting a private meeting the following morning. This was really happening. Ellis knocked on my door 30 minutes later, his usual confident demeanor replaced by something more cautious. Do you have a moment? He asked. I gestured to the chair across from my desk. Of course. He sat down, smoothing his tie repeatedly. I want to apologize for any miscommunications that may have occurred during your time here. We value your contributions enormously. Thank you, I replied, keeping my expression neutral. I appreciate that. I'm curious, he said, leaning forward slightly. Was this something you discussed with Preston before the meeting? I met his gaze directly. No, I was as surprised as everyone else. He nodded slowly, clearly processing this information. And the recording device on your phone during the meeting. My heartbeat quickened. He'd noticed. Single-party consent is legal in this state, Ellis. I've been documenting the interruption pattern for months with no acknowledgement. The recording was for my personal reference. His eyes widened slightly. I see. Are you planning to use this recording in some way? That depends entirely on what happens next, I said calmly. I came to DataStream because I believe in its potential. I still do, but I need the space to implement the strategies I was hired to create. Ellis nodded again, standing up. You'll have your new contract by tomorrow. And Autumn, I really am sorry. After he left, I sat in silence, processing everything that had happened. This wasn't how I'd planned my career trajectory. I'd never wanted power through ultimatums or external intervention. I'd simply wanted to be heard. My phone buzzed again, a text from Phoebe, my closest friend outside work. How did the big meeting go? I texted back. You won't believe it. Wine tonight? I need to process. At my apartment that evening, I recounted everything to Phoebe as we shared a bottle of Cabernet. I didn't plan for any of this, I concluded. I just wanted evidence of what was happening. Phoebe, a litigation attorney who'd faced her own battles with workplace dynamics, shook her head. You didn't create this situation, Autumn. They did. Preston just recognized what was happening and valued your work enough to intervene. But now I have to go back and lead people who resent me. Or, she countered, you get to reshape a company culture while having the protection of the primary investor. Do you know how rare that opportunity is? I sipped my wine thoughtfully. I keep thinking about the recording. Part of me wants to delete it now that it's served its purpose. Another part thinks I should keep it as insurance. Keep it, Phoebe said without hesitation. Not to use as a weapon, but as protection. You're about to make significant changes that will disrupt established power structures. Some people won't accept that gracefully. The next morning, I met with Preston via video conference. In daylight, away from the tension of the previous meeting, I could better appreciate his shrewd intelligence. "Miss Kelly, may I call you Autumn?" he began. "Of course. I want to be transparent about yesterday," he said. "Your interruptions weren't the only reason we were reconsidering our investment." I waited, curious. "For 3 months, we've been evaluating DataStream's leadership culture. Ellis is brilliant at product vision, but has created an echo chamber that rewards confidence over competence. When we learned they'd hired you, the strategist behind TechVent's remarkable turnaround, we were optimistic. But in subsequent meetings, we noticed you were consistently sidelined. You were testing them," I realized aloud. Preston nodded. "We needed to see if they would utilize your expertise effectively. They failed that test repeatedly. Yesterday's meeting simply confirmed what we already suspected. Why not just withdraw your investment?" "Because DataStream's technology is exceptional, and now it has you." He leaned forward. "I don't make decisions based on social justice, Autumn. I make them based on return on investment. Companies that silence their best thinkers make poor financial decisions. It's that simple." By the end of the day, I had signed both contracts, CSO at DataStream with a substantial raise and equity package, plus a position on Preston's advisory board at triple my previous consulting rate. The following Monday, Ellis called an all-hands meeting to announce the investment and my promotion. The news was framed entirely as positive organizational development, no mention of the conditions that prompted it. Some staff members seemed genuinely pleased. Others, particularly Devin and Wyatt, maintained tight smiles throughout. After the announcement, I outlined the strategic changes we would implement immediately. These adjustments may feel significant, but they're necessary for our growth and sustainability. I explained. I'll be meeting with each department individually to discuss how these changes affect your specific areas. The real work began that afternoon. I started with the marketing department, Devin's territory. I arrived at the conference room to find him already seated with his team, his expression carefully neutral. "Thank you for making time for this," I began, distributing materials. "I want to discuss how the new strategy affects marketing priorities and budget allocations." Devin cleared his throat. "Before we start, I think it's important to acknowledge that some of these changes may disrupt campaigns we've already invested in." "You're absolutely right," I replied. "That's why we're having this conversation. I need to understand what's in progress before finalizing departmental targets." For the next hour, I listened more than I spoke. I noted current projects, team concerns, and potential resistance points. When Devin attempted to dismiss certain changes as unrealistic or too aggressive, I asked specific questions that required detailed responses rather than generalizations. "Can you help me understand which specific metrics make you believe this target is unrealistic? Or, what additional resources would make this timeline feasible?" By meeting's end, Devin's team was engaged and offering constructive suggestions, while he sat increasingly quiet. As people filed out, he remained seated. "This feels personal, Autumn," he said once we were alone. I met his gaze steadily. "It's not personal, Devin. It's strategic. The company needs to change course to survive, and marketing plays a crucial role in that pivot." "You recorded that meeting, didn't you?" "With Preston." I neither confirmed nor denied it. "What matters now is moving forward. I value your expertise and need your department fully aligned with our new direction. Are you willing to partner on this?" He studied me for a long moment before nodding once. "I'll align with the strategy." Similar conversations played out across departments over the following days. Some embraced the changes enthusiastically. Others accepted them reluctantly. Wyatt proved particularly resistant, questioning every technical allocation in the new budget. During our third heated discussion about development resources, he finally erupted. "This is ridiculous. You're dismantling systems that took years to build because you got lucky with one investor who happens to like you." The room fell silent as his words hung in the air. "Is that what you think happened, Wyatt? That I got lucky?" I asked quietly. You know what I mean, he said, not backing down. Preston took a shine to you, and suddenly you're dictating everything. I opened my laptop and pulled up a spreadsheet. Let me show you something. I turned the screen toward him. These are the development costs for the past 18 months mapped against customer acquisition and retention. We're spending 43% more than industry standard to maintain features that less than 7% of our users regularly access. I clicked to the next tab. Here's the impact of redirecting those resources toward the features our highest value customers actually use daily. Projected revenue increase of 28% within 6 months with decreased development overhead. Wyatt stared at the numbers, his objections faltering. This isn't about Preston taking a shine to me, I continued. It's about implementing data-driven decisions that were ignored for months. You're a brilliant technical mind, Wyatt. I need that brilliance focused on the right priorities. The resistance didn't disappear overnight, but it gradually transformed into grudging respect as my strategy began showing results. By the end of the first quarter under the new approach, customer retention had improved by 16%, acquisition costs had decreased by 22%, and our runway had extended significantly. Ellis, to his credit, became an unexpected ally. During our weekly check-ins, he actively sought my input and publicly supported my decisions. After one particularly successful product launch, he stopped by my office. I was wrong about you, he said simply. Or rather, I was right initially when I recruited you, then wrong when I failed to listen. Thank you for acknowledging that, I replied. The board is impressed with our progress. They've mentioned expanding your role further. He hesitated. I wanted you to hear it from me first. 6 months after that recorded meeting, DataStream had transformed. We weren't just surviving, we were thriving. The company culture had shifted too. Meeting protocols now included designated presentation time, free from interruptions, and the leadership team had expanded to include more diverse voices. Devin eventually became a strong partner in implementing our marketing strategy, though our relationship remained strictly professional. Wyatt took longer to adapt, but ultimately thrived when given clear technical direction aligned with business goals. As for me, my dual roles as CSO and advisory board member opened doors I hadn't anticipated. Other companies in Preston's portfolio sought my consultation. Industry publications requested interviews about our turnaround strategy. I was invited to speak at conferences about financial leadership. The recording that started everything remained securely stored but unused. Its existence had served its purpose without ever needing to be played. The true vindication came during our annual investor meeting. Exactly 1 year after that pivotal recorded call, I presented our results to a room of stakeholders, including Preston and several new potential investors. Under Autumn's strategic direction, Ellis explained, DataStream has increased revenue by 67% year over year, while decreasing operational costs by 31%. Our customer base has grown by 43%, with improved retention metrics across all segments. Preston nodded approvingly as I walked through the details. When I finished, he addressed the room. When we invested in DataStream, we were investing in potential. Today, we're seeing that potential realized through clear strategic vision and disciplined execution. He turned to me. Ms. Kelly has demonstrated what happens when companies amplify their best voices rather than silencing them. After the meeting, Preston pulled me aside. I've been watching your work across our portfolio companies. The advisory role has been valuable, but I think we can do more. What did you have in mind? I asked. We're launching a new fund focused on undervalued companies with strong technical foundations but flawed strategic execution. Exactly the profile you excel with. I'd like you to consider joining as a managing partner. The offer was unexpected and life-changing. Partnership in a venture capital fund with significant carry percentage and decision-making authority. This would mean leaving DataStream, I said, processing the implications. Eventually, yes. Though we'd want you to transition gradually and perhaps maintain an advisory role, Ellis has grown considerably as a leader under your influence. I thought about the journey of the past year, from being repeatedly silenced to being offered a position where companies would actively seek my voice, from counting interruptions to shaping investment strategies for multiple organizations. I'd like to think about it, I told Preston. Of course, take the time you need. That evening, I sat in my apartment reviewing the offer details. My phone buzzed with a text from Phoebe. Heard through the grapevine, your meeting went well today. Celebration dinner? As we shared a meal at our favorite restaurant, I explained Preston's offer. So you'd be his equal in this new fund? She asked. A junior partner initially, but yes, with clear path to equal standing based on performance metrics. Phoebe raised her glass. To the woman who turned 17 interruptions into a venture capital partnership, I knew you were brilliant, but even I didn't see this coming. I clinked my glass against hers. Neither did I. I just wanted to be heard. And now everyone's listening, she said with a smile. The following week, I accepted Preston's offer with a 12-month transition plan for DataStream. When I announced my eventual departure to the leadership team, the reaction spoke volumes about how much had changed. Ellis expressed genuine disappointment but supported my decision. Devin acknowledged how much he'd learned working under my strategy. Even Wyatt offered congratulations, noting that the technical infrastructure changes had positioned the company for long-term success. In my final week at DataStream, before transitioning to my advisory role, Ellis organized a company celebration of our successful year. During his speech, he said something that resonated deeply. Sometimes the most valuable thing we can do as leaders is recognize when we need to listen instead of speak. Autumn taught us that lesson, and DataStream is stronger for it. Later that evening, as the celebration wound down, I found myself alone in the conference room where that fateful recorded meeting had taken place. I took out my phone and located the audio file that had never been played, my finger hovering over the delete button. After a moment's reflection, I pressed delete, then confirmation. The evidence was no longer necessary. The results spoke for themselves. As I stepped into my new role at the venture fund, I carried with me the most valuable lesson from my DataStream experience. True power isn't about silencing others or raising your voice the loudest. It's about creating environments where every valuable voice can be heard. In the 2 years since, our fund has invested in 27 companies, with particular focus on those with diverse leadership teams. Our returns have consistently outperformed industry averages. It turns out that funding companies that listen to all their best minds is not just ethically sound, it's financially shrewd. I still have the notebook where I tallied those 17 interruptions. It sits on my desk as a reminder of where this journey began. Sometimes when evaluating a potential investment, I observe their meeting dynamics, watching for who speaks and who gets silenced. It's become one of our most reliable indicators of a company's potential. The recording may be gone, but its impact remains in my career, in DataStream's transformed culture, and in every investment decision I now influence. That's the thing about finding your voice. Once you truly have it, you never need to prove it was silenced. If you've ever been interrupted, overlooked, or had your ideas attributed to someone else, I hope this story reminds you that your voice matters. Your ideas deserve to be heard completely, not just in fragments between interruptions. Have you experienced something similar in your workplace? What strategies helped you navigate it? I'd love to hear your stories in the comments below. Your experiences might help someone else currently struggling to be heard. If this resonated with you, please hit the like button and subscribe to this channel for more stories about workplace dynamics and professional growth. Every like helps this reach someone who might need to hear it today. And remember, sometimes the most powerful thing you can do isn't speaking louder, but documenting carefully. Your evidence becomes your advocate when you finally get the chance to be heard.